if you have this narrative of for this action to matter, their reaction has to happen, you're setting a conditional philosophy of my happiness is predicated on their response. You're living externally. You'll never have validation. You'll never have the feeling you need because you're all basing everything off something you can't control.
How did you hear about us?
So
you sent us a message.
Instagram. Yeah.
Instagram.
And I always watch people's podcasts to see like, there's so many people who don't get discovered.
Sure.
You know, and me struggling with the way I came about, I was a one-man army. So I had to figure out how to get my name out there. And I back-ended myself as like a D-list celebrity and built my career based on that. Like faked myself as a celebrity. So
sometimes that's what it takes. You gotta believe in yourself.
Fake it till you make it too.
No, like literally I like lived that to the point where I got on that TV show and did a bunch of stuff and it was crazy. So
yeah, you were on the Titan
Games?
Yeah, Titan Games with The Rock.
With Dwayne Johnson.
How?
Bro, they reached out to me. I thought it was fake. I wasn't even gonna go. This buddy called me at like 11 at night. He's like, we want to do a video interview with you. I'm like, I'm not going on no black couch. I'm not
Casting couch.
You know? Yeah. I was like, nah. But he was like, oh, we're doing this show with the Rock. I'm like, okay. And they reached out to me. There was like 200,000 people that applied for this show.
Wow.
They gave me an opportunity to compete for a spot against 200 people. They flew me out to LA. I went home. I was like, there's no way. I'm a power lifter. Like I lift heavyweight, but that's it. They were like, we chose you and we're going to use you for all the marketing. So I was on the bus, I was on the billboards with The Rock and did all this stuff. And it was crazy, man.
That's so cool.
Insane. So you met him and
he was cool as hell.
He was super cool. From what I hear, he seems like a nice guy.
Bro, he comes in a room, you talk and he leaves like, oh, that was The Rock. Like he doesn't talk down to you at all.
Yeah.
Super cool, dude.
That's awesome, man. So, I mean, just for people to understand a little bit about yourself, kind of maybe we usually start with people giving them like an introduction about who they are, where they're from. So just kind of people have an idea of who you are.
For sure.
If you want to kind of just kind of break into
So I was born with a physical disability.
Okay.
And for 17 years, I hid my disability up until maybe 4 years ago.
How old are you?
I'm 31 now.
Okay.
Oh, right.
So I hid my disability for the majority of my life. Just because I wasn't comfortable with the way I looked, the way I felt. And, you know, I grew up in a poor area in Pompano and it was a struggle being different. Mm-hmm. And I didn't accept myself for a very long time. So I really don't even consider living a good life until I finally accepted myself a few years ago. Then I created a career for myself. I went to school for exercise science because I thought I wanted to build muscle.
Okay.
I wanted to get girls. Let's be honest. Like I thought that was the key. Like abs was the key.
Yeah.
Right.
And I got abs and I'm like, why am I still not happy?
Yeah.
You know? So I became a personal trainer. I was like, I'm still not happy. I built my own business online. I'm like, this is cool, but I still feel like I'm missing something.
Right.
And I found speaking, and now I'm a professional speaker. I built a speaking business around the world, and I help people see their world without limits. And now I'm finally feeling fulfilled because it's not about what I'm earning. It's about what I'm giving. And sometimes you teach best what you need to learn most, and that like changed my life.
That is true. You teach best what that is so true. So you grew up and so it's a type 1 diabetes?
I have type 1 diabetes. I got that at 19. So I struggled having a disability, you know, my entire life because I was born this way.
Okay.
But I got an autoimmune disease, type 1 at 19. And that was like the trigger, the catalyst for me to be like, I can't be this disabled diabetic kid.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that can't define you.
It can't. And the bad thing is like, if you think about some of the synonyms for disability, it's like weak or broken or useless or helpless. Like you almost define people with disabilities as less than, you know?
Yeah.
You see a guy with a disability opening a bag of chips and you're like, wow, that's so motivating. Is it?
Yeah.
you just wanted some damn chips, you know?
Yeah. Or people automatically feel sorry for you or feel bad for you.
Or they feel more inspired because I'm doing something. They're like, I've had so many people come up to me and they're like, oh man, that's so crazy. I can't even do that. And I'm like, well, you can't do that because you didn't spend your entire life training for it. You know, it's not because you're not disabled. It's because you don't put in the effort. It's because you don't have the work ethic like I do. So I had to deal with that for a long time. So I kind of pursued fitness as a way to be competitive.
Right.
And I got into powerlifting and I got to the point where I was competing against normal body competitors, you know?
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I broke a world record. I broke 4 state records and
insane.
It was cool, but Congrats. It was like, damn, there's so many people that doubted me because of a condition I never asked for. Mm-hmm. So what do I get to do to make a life full of purpose, or how do I get to turn this life around and like deal with the cards that I was dealt, you know? And I found a way, and it comes through choice and the way you help people and the way you position yourself. And it's the narrative that you give yourself. And for so long I had a bad narrative, and that's with anything in life, you know, we give ourselves a bad narrative, and I'm sure you've been there, whether it's relationships, professional, personal.
100%, yeah. not when you were breaking these records and you were doing all these things, were you feeling like, man, like I've proven this to them, or what was
to yourself?
Yeah, well, was there? I'm sure there must have been like a lot of satisfaction. Was it more centered about yourself, or you're like, these people doubted me and I still made it? I still did what everybody said I couldn't do. How was that for you?
I think the hardest thing for me was I went too far, too extreme. I had a hard time appreciating anything. Satisfaction is the death of desire. And that phrase was burned into my head. So the second I broke a record, or the second I did something that was notable to other people, I wouldn't say, wow, that was great. I would say, what's next? So I got addicted to more. I got addicted to abundance, and our society is big on that.
That is true, yeah.
And it sucked because there's so many things that I did that seemed cool on paper, but I never really got to like feel it until I took a step back from everything, and I was like, I'm allowed to feel proud. I'm allowed to enjoy what I've done. I'm allowed to say, wow, that's awesome, But for so long, I didn't allow myself to do that. And we do that all the time. You accomplish amazing things. And sometimes getting out of the bed is a huge accomplishment. But we're saying, oh, it's not enough. It's never enough. It's that narrative we just talked about. It's the narrative in your head that you constantly tell yourself, I need to do more, or something's off, or I should be doing this, or I shouldn't be doing that. That narrative determines quality of life for everything. That's why I wrote that book about like self-communication. Because I was like, everyone says communication is key. Communication is key. That's step 2. Because self-communication is key. How do you expect someone to communicate with you when you don't know how to communicate with you? How are we skipping that step? Why are we having expectations of other people that we're not willing to do ourselves? Doesn't make sense.
That's literally like what our focus is.
Yeah.
That's why I love this, because I was like, oh man, this is like so aligning with where you guys, like what you feel about mental health and everything. So
literally before you came here, I had texted him and I was like, hey, I'm excited for our guest because I saw his videos. I read it on his article. He has a book and everything like that, and his website. And it's like everything he embodies is what we embody. You know what I mean? So being able to bring you on and have that kind of conversation and knowing that, yeah, you have a disability, but it's not a disability.
Yeah.
If anything, it kind of empowers you. It's like, hey, you're complaining about whatever you're complaining about. And it's like, what's stopping you? Only you are stopping yourself.
It's that story.
So it's that mindset that you were able to put yourself in. And now it's like, you want to help everyone else to get there as well. There's no excuses to anything. It all comes down to you and what your belief is and what you can accomplish. So the fact that you're kind of sending that message for us, it was like, man, this is going to be amazing.
It's like inspiring. And like we were watching your videos on YouTube and stuff like that. And it's like, man, like this guy just embodies like self-confidence and motivation, inspiration. So the fact that you're a keynote speaker, it makes 100%, it makes sense to me because like, I think you walk into a room and people probably gravitate towards you and the things that you say and the things that you've overcome. It's a big step, and for a lot of people. And I think I always say this, like the biggest thing you could do to me personally is making an impact in somebody else's life.
100%.
Especially if they've been in a position where they felt helpless or they felt like there's no way out. And we always talk about it. There's always another option. There's always another day. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. But for a lot of people, when they're in that position, they don't see it that way. So I think it's an amazing experience. And I'm sure you've had it plenty of times when you had helped some people out and they're like, hey, thank you for what you said or what you did. So I think that's a great feeling. And I always say it's so important to have that.
I think people have to understand when you say the biggest thing is having impact, the biggest thing is having impact, but it doesn't have to be big things. And that's where people confuse. You don't have to go on a TV show. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to have a professional podcast. If you want to feel good, if you're down on yourself, the biggest way to have impact is go to the gas station and hold the door open for someone. You want to have even bigger impact? Go to the gas station, hold the door open for them, and don't expect them to say anything. Do it because you wanted to help. Help an old lady up a stair. Big impact doesn't have to be big things. And people confuse that. You don't have to be in front of thousands and thousands of people.
I'm also thinking that it all comes down to the expectation, I think. Because if you're going with the expectation of some sort of what's the word I'm looking for?
Reward or
rewarding recognition, like you're doing it expecting to get something from the other person rather than you doing it from yourself. And then because now we're putting ourselves up to disappointment if we don't get the expectation, if that expectation is not met from our actions. But when you're able to do it yourself because you want to do it, that's a whole different side of accomplishing something because you did it for you, not with that expectation of getting it from someone else.
That's massive. It comes down to the narrative. If you have this narrative of for this action to matter, their reaction has to happen, you're setting a conditional philosophy of my happiness is predicated on their response. You're living externally. You'll never have validation. You'll never have the feeling you need because you're all basing everything off something you can't control.
And I also feel like that's a huge problem, especially in dating, because we've had other guests that we've talked about that it's like they jump from relationship to relationship, never fully feeling healed together within themselves. It's always like they're looking for someone else's, their validation. That was the word I was looking for. Someone else, external validation, rather than finding that within yourself, being happy with who you are and what you bring to the table, what you've accomplished, what are everything that you embody. It's special in its own way. And for you to have to feel like someone else has to accept you, that's where we're wrong on that one. It's how you accept yourself to then for you to put that person out in front for then they can be like, oh, that's who they are.
Which is why I talk about self-communication. And I was actually listening to one of the podcasts on the way here about mental health and from the therapist you guys had recently, I think in February.
Which one? Ingrid?
Yeah.
Oh, she was awesome. Yeah.
Someone, I don't know if it was one of you, I believe it was one of you said the phrase easier said than done.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That phrase gets us in a lot of trouble. And here's why. Easier said than done, 100% true, but better done than said. That is what we need to come down to because it's easier said than done to go to work. I'd rather not, it's easier said than done to make your bed. It's easier said than done to do all these things. And people are like, no, I have to go to work. No, you don't. You could be homeless. You could lose everything you own. You could. But you turned a desire to not be homeless into a necessity. And if you have the ability to turn a desire into a necessity with something, you can do it with anything, whether that's maintaining your boundaries, whether that's maintaining your value, whether that's, giving your all, being authentic. Those are choices. Easier said than done. Absolutely. But better done than said.
It's almost like, didn't Steve Harvey have a saying that it's change the way that you say or like how you think of an action. So for example, damn, I have to go to work today rather than I get to go to, Yeah. So that you're already changing the narrative and now you're changing your mindset to whatever action it is. So instead of you thinking like, man, I got to go do this. It's like, I actually have the chance to do this.
Yeah.
Not anyone can say that, but I can do it.
It always comes back to that narrative. And it's so important because if we put this narrative of no one loves me, we put this narrative of no one can please me, this narrative of every person I'm with sucks, we're so bound to what happened in our past that we're repeating it. We're literally reliving the stuff we say we don't like because we're choosing to say, this is just how I've always been. Jesus. This is how I've always been. Whoa. Who you have been doesn't have to be who you are.
Oh, 100%.
But people live by that. That's just how I do it. No, that's how you did it. And that's how you're choosing to do it. That's the narrative you're taking from the past and applying to now because you can't fix what you did, but you're actively recreating it. And that's on you. Responsibility, and not just responsibility, but responsibility. Your ability to respond is kind of important. And the bad thing is we're blaming and pointing fingers at everyone. I don't have enough fingers to point at all the people I wanted to blame, but the one that I do have, it was me. It was always me. And it wasn't until I said my value is my value, regardless of what happens around me or to me. It's my choice. Easier said than done, but better done than said.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day and she was sharing with me how she was very frustrated with how someone else was handling something. And I'm like, well, have you ever thought of it doing it this way? Like change the way that you do it. No. That's just how they are. Well, no. That's what you've allowed to happen.
Yes.
You've accepted that.
Yes.
So you cannot control what they do, but you can also react the same way, expecting them to change how they do it. No, you're in control of what you can do. So you handle that on yourself. Because for example, they can do whatever they want. You can't control. I'm so sorry.
No,
cutting you off and stuff. Yeah, you can't control, what they do, but you can control your response to those
Always.
actions.
That's the one thing you can.
Exactly. So that really hit me because at the end of the day, you can only handle yourself, but it also comes in with you having that self-communication to have that strength to do so.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Man, I love that. 100%. It's really up to the individual in itself. And every day you have to make choices and you could turn your life around every day. And it's just so important to kind of take that into perspective. I think people just like to be comfortable with the choices that they make. And it's like, oh, it's always been this way. Well, it doesn't have to be. And it feels easier sometimes to just kind of keep doing the same thing that you were doing, your parents were doing, their parents were doing, and you kind of sometimes get stuck. So I think it's important for some people to kind of step outside that and look at it from an outside perspective. Okay, what is going on? And do I really enjoy the direction my life is going? If the answer is yes, that's great. If the answer is no, well, then put some action behind that, And so I think that's important.
You said the word comfort, and I love that. I have a concept in my book. It's called Don't Touch the Hot Stove. We get so comfortable with pain we'd prefer pain that we know rather than the unknown of fear. So people would rather be hurt the same way by the same person just because they know the capacity of pain versus leaving them for the fear of the unknown. There's a possibility that it could be worse, but there's a likelihood that it would be better. Mm-hmm. But that possibility of unknown or that possibility of worse makes them run back to the comfort of pain that they know. You know, the devil you know, so to speak. And people get comfortable with that. I've learned to accept. I've learned to deal with. I've learned to, you know, live this way. So it's not that bad. So we live in this purgatory of it's not as good as we want it to be, but it's not bad enough to change.
It's
tolerable. And life should not be tolerable. Life doesn't have to be enjoyable all the time, but it damn sure shouldn't be tolerable. Mm-hmm. Contentment is what we need. And if you're not content with your situation, we need to change something, whether the way we perceive it or the way we go about it, reaching out for help. There are certain situations that require, you know, intervention, whether it's domestic violence or anything like that. But in terms of acceptance, you teach people how to treat you.
Whatever you allow them, that's what's going to continue.
100%. You don't deserve anything. You deserve what you allow. And that's a hard truth. You deserve what you choose to put up with. And it sucks. You know, it's one of those like hard hitting facts, but you got to position yourself to understand your value. You got to position yourself to set boundaries. And if you teach them that breaking boundaries is okay, you're teaching them how to treat you.
But how would you help someone think that? Because I'm thinking of, you know, we started off with relationships. Now we talk about almost anything. But I can see how, for example, let's use the examples of a relationship, a woman who's probably unhappy with her man and stuff, but she stays, right? Because she's comfortable with what she knows and she's afraid to leave because she doesn't know what else is going to be out there. How would you be able to, in this scenario, in any scenario, how do you kind of guide or coach them for them to kind of find that within themselves again?
So how do you know what's on the outside of this door?
Got to go through it. Got to open the door.
And you're probably not afraid because more than likely you've already told yourself a story that it's okay. But if you told yourself the story that there's 3 armed men aiming at the door,
that door's not opening.
You're not opening the door. The narrative is everything. And the bad thing is people confuse feelings with facts. Feelings are not facts. If you feel like you're not going to find something out there, that's not a fact. That's just the story you told yourself with the emotional lacing of my comfort is so deep that anything to shake that is not worth experiencing.
It's like you convince yourself to believe it's fact.
And if you convinced yourself, you can unconvince yourself. We need to not just break up with the people who wrong us, but break up with the feelings that wrong us. And for so long, those feelings that wrong us are told by us. If you wanted to get better at tennis, you wouldn't practice basketball, you know? Specificity is everything. So if you want to get better at learning your value, learning your boundaries, you have to practice that. Self-communication comes back to that. Just because you tell yourself a story doesn't mean it's true. And just because you tell yourself a story doesn't mean you can't change it. It takes effort. It's hard, yes, but it is relatively simple. It takes consistent practice over time. We can't expect to upend the lack of optimal mental health that we've instilled in ourselves. But it starts with a single step, you know? It takes effort on your part. It doesn't have to be perfect. But so many people say, because I can't be at the finish line now, I'm not going to train for the race.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to hang out at the finish line without running the race. Mental health, business, relationships. Everyone wants to have the perfect, you know, white picket fence marriage. Everyone wants to have the $1 million podcast. Everyone wants to have this, but no one wants to suck. No one wants to struggle. It sucks. It does suck. Yeah. But growth is the exciting part. The finish line is the, that's the effect of growth. But people are uncomfortable with change. They're uncomfortable with uncertainty and they're uncomfortable with growth because growth hurts.
I feel like there's so much more reward knowing that you had to go through that journey rather than just hanging out on the finish line. But sure. I also think but you have to learn. I guess you have to go through those obstacles and overcome an obstacle yourself to be like, wow, like this feels so much different than if I would have you could say, oh man, I wish I lived in that condo, which trust me, of course, I'd love to live in a beautiful condo overseeing the beach. But knowing if I can build, like, what did I go through to get there? I feel like that's so much more rewarding of that journey to overcome everything in order to get there.
I think there's beauty in the journey and I go the process in itself, even though it's
juices in the journey.
Juices in the journey. Yeah, we had someone say that. Shout out to Dr. Hisi. But I think the struggle in itself is I think what makes us human, or what makes the journey really rewarding, and you can apply that to anything. And just if you could just snap your finger and just have everything you wanted, would it be really that rewarding? No, it would just be mundane, and it just be
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You would kind of not really appreciate it as much. But when you work your way up the ladder and going through the struggle and the pain and the agony, and you make it, and you look back, man, I really overcame this. I really got through this, whether it is school, relationships, your business, your finances, whatever it is. Looking back, it's a beautiful thing. You know?
It really is. And I think people say they want things, but I'm okay with wanting things as long as you're honest with yourself. I would love to have a penthouse on that condo. I also know I'm not going to do right now what it takes to get that. I'm going to be honest with myself. I'm currently not dedicating my life to get that penthouse. Yes, it would be nice to just kind of have maybe, but like I know I'm not going to put in the work for that. My life path is where my life path is, and that's what I'm focused on. So don't lie to yourself and say you want things you aren't willing to work for, you know? You can't, you got, because you're just creating more stress in your life. You're creating extra stuff that you're not even doing anything about. It's like trying to drive the car from the back seat. You're not, you need to take control and say, okay, what am I actually going to do? If you're not actually going to do it, it doesn't have space in your head, because we have such a limited capacity now. Even driving here, I'm like looking at all the billboards, the cars, there's so much, and I'm listening to the podcast, and there's so much sensory overload. Focus on what you can control. Stop telling yourself all these little things. If you truly wanted it, you could, if you wanted to. But be honest. It's not urgent. It's not a priority right now. What is? And focus on that, Man,
I like that. This is insightful, man. Thank you so much. Like, because this is the beauty of what we do is just to bring on people and have these discussions, because there's so many people out there who can relate, or who maybe they don't have the type of people in their life that could install that kind of wisdom onto them. And so I think this is kind of what we started this, and really making an impact, helping people, regardless if it's just one person or 100 or whatever it is. And that's kind of the journey that we're on right now.
I love that.
Yeah. And there's a lot that we have, we have so many goals and visions and stuff like that, but sometimes we got to take a step back and be appreciative and be grateful for where we are versus where we started and then where we're going. So
I wanted to ask you, Chris, kind of shift gears a little bit. What was your upbringing like when you were born? So you were born with... I
was born with a physical disability.
I hate calling it a disability because it's like it's not,
It's like I have a disability, but I'm not disabled.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But so you were born like this. So how was it growing up? Like, did you have any obstacles for yourself, maybe to... as you grew up, maybe physical obstacles, or then I guess your upbringing, like maybe with your family as well as friends. How was that growing up?
So I grew up in a pretty crappy area, but like I grew up with the people I grew up with. So they knew me as that's just how I was. People made fun of my hand, but I just thought that's just what it was, that's how I live. And I tried to pretend like I was hard, and I ended up learning to hide my hand. Specific case, there was a girl named Crystal, and I was in middle school, and I was like, I'm going to ask this girl out, like it's going to be my first girlfriend. I got the courage to go in front of the class and ask her out. And I went up to her desk, and all my friends were laughing. I turned around, I'm like, stop, I'm like, I'm about to get this girl. I turn around and she's making fun of my residual limb with a stapler, calling me claw boy in front of the whole class, because that's the 2 fingers I have on my residual limb. And I shoved my hand in my pocket, and I kept it there for almost 10 years. And when I say that, people are like, oh, you hid your hand. No, when I went to Washington, D.C. for a school field trip, I almost got arrested because I refused to take my hand out of my pocket. I swam in the ocean with my hand in my pocket. I did the PE test with my hand in my pocket. I got in my first fight with my hand in my pocket, and I lost because I would rather get hit and lose than take my hand out of my pocket. So I'm very used to body image issues or anything like that. And I understand what it feels like, By the same token, you guys have the exact same story as me. You went through some shit, you got over some shit, and more shit's coming. Right. So when you break down everyone's story to the bare bones, we all have a very similar story, but sometimes we want to say, oh, but I had it worse. Like it's a competition, like
that's true.
You want me to relieve the responsibility of you making your story better by comparing it to mine. And I could tell my story any way I want. I could tell you a story and make you guys tear up. I could tell you a story and make you laugh with the same story. The The only difference was my perspective and my choice on how I tell it to you guys and how I tell it to myself.
But this was recent. This was kind of recent when you kind of opened up again.
It was. So about 4 years ago, I was still hiding my disability. I wore a glove. I wore a glove over my hand, and I was just known as the guy with the glove, you know? I played drums. I did martial arts. I did all kinds of stuff. I shoved a drumstick through the finger hole of a glove and played 4 years on my drum line. Like,
really?
Yeah, I did everything you could, to the point where people grew to accept my discomfort as confidence. I got so comfortable being fake confident, hiding in front of, I hid in plain sight.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. You see people smile like, that's the happiest person I've ever seen. You don't know that. That's just a story you told yourself about them. Robin Williams, people like that. You never know. You never know what people are struggling with. For me, my confidence was a way to hide my depression. It was a way to hide my anxiety. And I lived that way for a very long time. And I told myself, I don't think I'm ever going to stop hiding my disability unless I get a prosthetic arm, which it's almost impossible. This is $150,000. It's very expensive. Yeah. So the likelihood of getting approved for this in the United States is very hard. One day I finally got it approved, and I'm a man of my word. So I decided to make a YouTube video, basically my coming out video, like taking the glove off. That went viral on Reddit and YouTube. Washington Post covered it. Eventually The Rock reached out with a TV show. And from that day, I was thrown in the deep end, and it was the best thing that could ever happen. Because I got thousands of messages, people saying, oh, I'm uncomfortable, I'm unconscious, I'm self-conscious about this. Or it made me realize not only was I not alone, I had a job to do. Like, I vow to be the person I never really had growing up to help me see my value for what it is. And I talk about it on stage all the time when I get hired to do events. If you saw $100 bill on the ground and it was crumpled up and dirty, you'd pick that shit up. You wouldn't be like, don't like that one, because you recognize the value. But the second we have a defect mentally, physically, emotionally in ourselves, we're like, my value is less. I'm no longer 100. I'm 80. That girl broke up with me. I'm 60.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that.
The only difference was you decided to lower your value because you're the only one that can set that bar. And when you set that bar, you live your life accordingly to the story that you placed on yourself.
Jeez.
I wanted to ask you about coincident. You said breakup. How was dating for you when you were younger, and maybe even now? Like, have you ever had any struggles because you were for a while you were afraid of what people thought of you? How did that impact your dating?
Before you go into that, is that why were you always into fitness?
No, I got into fitness right after I got diagnosed with diabetes at 19.
Oh, so you did it more for the health side, or?
I did it because it's just super competitive. I was like, I can't be this disabled diabetic kid, so I have to like do something. And then someone told me, you can't really work out because you're a one-handed guy living in a two-handed world. Like, machines are made for not you. And I found a way. I adapted. So I wanted to be a bodybuilder, for so long. I saw the magazines and stuff, and it took a long time. So in the middle of trying to bodybuild, I ended up found powerlifting. That's where I got competitive, getting up to a 675 pound deadlift. And then I finally got big enough to do my first bodybuilding show last year.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
Yeah.
Nasty.
It was crazy. Yeah. But after 15 years, I ended up winning first place, and it was cool, but it's like, damn, I accomplished that goal. And for me, the stage, the trophy, it's a $5 trophy. I could buy it myself if I wanted to.
Yeah.
It was like every kid who lived that life that I was, saw me and they're like, maybe I can.
Yeah.
And that maybe I can moment is what drives me like every day,
I was wondering because obviously you growing up and with the disability, it's almost like, well, maybe you tried to compensate for it.
Definitely. There was lots of overcompensation for sure. To the point where like anything I did was competitive. If I skateboarded, I wanted to be the best skateboarder. It's almost like I never felt enough. So I had to prove to everyone around me that I was,
Really?
And that extremist of wanting to be successful, wanting to be seen as successful, I was fighting for other people's acceptance, even if I already had it, just because I wouldn't give it to myself. But I wanted to control the way people thought about me. And that's a very manipulative thing, to try and control how people see you, because I could have let that aside and be like, how do I see myself? I would have lived a lot more quality of life in my head. I still did stuff that might have helped people, but if I could go back, I would start from the ground up. I wouldn't start building the roof and work my way down,
No, because I'm thinking, because it's almost like you would do all of that. It would almost bring more attention to you Yet you would hide.
Hiding in plain sight was my thing. I was a dancer for a long time.
This guy did everything.
Everything but sports. I'm the only guy that doesn't like sports. I swear to God.
Really?
I got a degree in exercise science and I hate sports. It's really weird. But I danced, I did martial arts, drumming, anything creative. But I would perform in front of my school. Yeah. And it's almost like I got ahead of the eyes.
Yeah.
Make you look at me because of what I'm doing, not because of how I look. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I redirected the narrative away from it, and I made it so uncomfortably comfortable for people. No one would dare ask me. I never had people ask me about my hand. Once I got that confidence of like, this is who I am, you know, I'm the guy with the glove, and that's what it is.
But it's almost like, well, you're more than just the glove, like because
for so long I felt like that though. There was times I didn't go to school because I couldn't find my glove.
Really?
My parents wouldn't even dare question.
Yeah. I mean,
it got that bad. And that's why I say when I talk to people today, whether it's corporations or individuals, relationships, anything like that, you got to know you first.
Yeah.
We're so busy trying to have other people fill our holes with emotionally, not physically, maybe physically, but you know, we're so busy trying to have people fill that gap. Like no one can complete something that's your job to complete.
Yeah.
But it's the hard work. No one wants to do that. Of course, like if I want water, I would love someone to bring it to me.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to get out yourself. Most of the times you do.
So I'm sorry. So I tangent out on that one because I want to get some groundwork. So but you also mentioned relationships. So in your upbringing and even till today, I guess the disability even from younger, did that ever hinder you? Obviously, other than Crystal, that bitch.
Yeah.
Other than her, any other issues? Like how has that been for you?
So surprisingly, I've been like kind of like a serial monogamist in a sense. You know, I've always had long relationships. Okay. With 2 girls for 5+ years, and then I had like a 2-year relationship, and now I'm in like the healthiest relationship I've been in. But I would say the hardest part about dating was myself, and they were dating a fabricated version of me. So anytime I look back in relationships I had, I tried to be the best version of what I thought they needed, not the truest version of myself. I wanted to check all the boxes that they needed. And while they might have been happy in the moment, they were never truly happy because they never got me. They got a false representation of me.
do you feel like you were maybe so focused on everything on that checklist, like, oh, I got to be perfect, because if I'm not, maybe they would not want to be with me because maybe I feel like I'm lacking something because of your disability.
100%. I truly believed if I gave them my real version of me, they wouldn't be happy with it.
You were faking it until you made it.
And I never made it because it was never me, you know? And I went to therapy and I really had to work on myself the last few years. And I was like, everyone loves me, you know, like people think I'm so charismatic. Everyone loves me. I love that. And she's like, no, they don't. She's like, no one loves you because no one knows you. They love the version of you that you put out. And I was just like, why'd you just have to ruin my life like that, you know?
But don't you think if you would have been the true you, they still would have loved you for who you are?
I do now.
At the time,
I refused to accept that because I didn't accept me. That self-narrative wasn't there.
Starts with yourself.
That's it. But looking back, the reason those relationships didn't really succeed was because they never had me. They never knew me. You know, I didn't know me. So that's why when I talk about anything from like overcoming adversity at a high level or even relationships, it starts with you. And that sounds so cliche, but I truly mean if you don't know you and what you want, not society, what society tells you want or what you think you should or shouldn't have, if you don't unlock like who you are and what you want, you'll never be happy because you're chasing something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, your level, if you have check boxes that you didn't put there yourself or you put there because of you felt you weren't enough from the past, things you didn't heal from, like you guys said, you're checking boxes that don't matter to you.
True.
So it's my relationship now. It's one of those communication things. And it's crazy to be with someone who is so open about fixing the problem. It's not you versus me. It's us versus the problem type situation, you know? And
you listen to a couple of podcasts.
I say it all the time.
In a situation like that, it's crazy to say like, oh, I have an issue or this made me feel this way. Instead of saying that's not what I meant. It's like, I can see how that made you feel. Let's talk about that. I'm like, whoa, whoa, this is crazy. Like no one does
I'm
that.
not used to this.
We're South Florida, right? Like this is weird.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
But it's cool. And it made you realize like, healthy communication is one of the best things you could ever have in a relationship. But until you have that self-communication, you're not giving your part, you know? And I heard another part of your podcast where you're talking about 50-50, giving 50-50 or giving 100-100.
Yeah.
If we only choose to give 50, which is the only issue I have with that is if you could have gave 100 and you gave 50 and they could have gave 50 and they gave 50, there's a discrepancy.
Right. Because they're putting 100.
They're putting 100.
Essentially.
And guess what? If you can only give 30 and you give 30, I respect that so much more than the person who can give 100 and only gives 50. Because it's a choice. And when you choose to give your all, which I think you can always give your all, even if it's at a lesser capacity, your all might only be 10 today and it might be 1,000 tomorrow. But the difference is a choice. And if you're choosing to give your partner less, you're choosing to be less in the relationship. And that's almost self-sabotage to your relationship.
And I think it also waters down the relationship in itself because, well, now it's like, are we really fully committed to this? Because if I'm giving it all my all and you're kind of holding back, what does that tell me about the situation that we're in right now?
But people do it with their jobs. They do it with everything. Oh, if you're not working, I'm not going to do my job.
Yeah.
No, it's not conditional. You give your all the time. And if you do everything you know you need to, and that relationship doesn't work out, you can walk away with that internal closure, knowing one, it wasn't you, and two, you did what you needed to do. But if you are matching other people, you have this conditional philosophy about love or care. If your life is conditional, you're living externally. And if you're living externally, you'll never have internal happiness, which is the only thing you'll ever feel. Everything might feel good, almost like drugs. It might feel good for a second, but then you're chasing that high, whether it's sex, drugs, a small moment. We're so close to the wall that we can't see the bigger picture. And we hyper focus on the small moments that are good and wash away the big moments that are bad because you're not willing to take a step back and be like, damn, this isn't working for me. I'm not working for me. You know, we're so quick to point fingers and it's like, how about take care of you first and then evaluate?
Yeah. I always think, I always say effort is the number one most important thing.
I think that's the most attractive quality anyone could ever have. And when someone asks me like, what's your biggest turn on? Effort and desire. Effort and desire. And desire not just sexually, but effort. Literally showing effort towards your partner. On the other side of the spectrum, the biggest turnoff is a lack of effort. Yeah. Where you could have done something and you didn't.
You chose not to. You chose not to.
Exactly.
That choice. The power of choice is so vital in a relationship. And it's like, I didn't feel like it. Okay, there's tons of stuff I don't feel like doing. And I still do it because I know, one, it matters to my partner. And two, the relationship matters to me. You know, I do stuff because bringing the person I care about pleasure in a way that's still within my boundaries, gotta say that, is vital, you know?
I think it's a very slippery slope because I like to translate effort to everything. So if you were to show me very low effort on one thing, what else are you not going to put your full effort towards? Yeah. So if it's something that's very serious or maybe something important to me, important to us, but you showed me that you have the capacity to not put full effort, I start to question, well, what if the time gets tough? Yeah. Am I going to be able to count on you to put your all in order for this to work or for whatever it may be? I
get that for sure. And my therapist called it catastrophizing, basically taking something and running with it, you know? Yeah. Now, does that mean it's true? No. Because what happens if it was a slip up? What happens if your value set is different? You guys didn't communicate it effectively. And the person...
A lot of factors, yeah.
You know, put in the effort they thought was relative, but for you, that was monumental. And for them, it wasn't. Mm-hmm. You know, there might be things that offend them that don't offend you. And by you saying, oh, that didn't mean anything, you just offended that person. You just invalidated that person. Same way, if they were to say, no, that effort, it didn't matter. I was just like, you know, I was just on autopilot. To them, it was nothing. To you, it was everything. So communication, making sure you guys know your value sets. What are your non-negotiables? What are the things that would offend you beyond belief? And that's your duty as a partner to understand what makes your person tick and what makes your person turn off. And that's why communication is so important. And we've kind of lost that art of communication today because of the unhealthy way we communicate through social media and highlight reels and all that stuff. So I think it's really important to understand when you get in a relationship, what makes your partner tick? And are you paying attention, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to also the character of your partner and that person, because you had just said, you know, maybe it was important to me and I put max effort, but for you it wasn't. Maybe you were on autopilot.
Yeah.
I think if you're able to understand the character of your partner, which that's the goal, that's the objective. You want to get to the true character of the partner because that's who they are. That's to their bones, that's who they are. Because then you're able to then say, well, I put max effort. And I guess you're more understanding, you're more empathetic
for sure
on their end of what they're willing to provide, and what they're willing to put up. But again, that all comes down to knowing you're effectively communicating, but then getting to the point of knowing who their character is. Because without that, it can just be smoke and mirrors, or you're never like, what are you really discussing with your partner that you haven't gone to the bottom of what their character is?
I'm about to say something that's like might offend a lot of people. I don't think people want to get to know their partner. In a lot of cases, I don't think people want to get to know their partner. I think people want to make that person into the ideal partner. I think people are obsessed with the idea of a partner. So they take all of the bad and throw it away, and they take the good and like make it look better. So they don't want to truly get to know you. They want you to be the person they need.
Mm-hmm. I think some people, they love the idea of someone.
They get obsessed with
it. Like what this person could do for my life, what they can bring to it. Exactly.
Could.
But they don't take the people at face value.
Nope.
You can't be falling in love with potential. You know, you can't
fall in love with potential.
That's a big one. And people are like, oh, they could be this person. I know they're a good person deep down, really deep.
You're literally making excuses. You got to stop making excuses for the people that stopped giving you effort.
Oh,
you know,
man, yeah.
And I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and they're like, if they would just, and I said, if they were just different, if they were just not them, they would be perfect. Do you hear how that sounds? If they would just do this, if they were just not them, you're giving yourself the answer on what you need to do. Easier said than done, better done than said. Doesn't matter. You're creating a narrative, you know, you're not taking them for face value. Now, there are going to be times where you have to discuss things. Like I've had situations where I'm like, oh, that hurt me or that offended me. We talk about it and it's good, you know? So pay attention to what they do after that. Pay attention to what they do after you communicate, because that's where they'll show you their effort and that's where they'll show you their true person. And I think we do fall in love with potential. And we make stories for ourselves. We have this Disneyfication of who they could be, you know, like everyone wants to have that home run, you know, but no one's willing to go do all the miss all of the hits to get there, you know, and it's the unfortunate part about life.
I also think it's hard. Some people are just in denial that there was someone that they put in the time, the work, and it's been whatever months and years, and it's like, and they realize deep down, this is not the person for me. But it's so hard to accept that this is not the person.
You know,
no, go ahead.
Well, it's frustrating because you know what I think? It's because you had said something about face value, but we also have to be careful because we always want to, like our first impression, we always say, well, that's the most important. You know, first impression is key. You know, so we always like to kind of fluff up or deliver our best package, you would say, to that person so they can see, oh, well, let me kind of be the best that I can be. But is that who you are every day? You know what I mean? And I think that's where you have to be careful, because I think what happens in relationships, they fall in love with who they meet. Mm-hmm. And then at first it's great.
Yeah.
And you're putting all this effort that sometimes it's not really who you are. You're just trying to be the best version of you for your partner. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But you know that you can't sustain that forever. So then what happens? It starts to go down, your true self starts to come out, and then you start holding on to the person who they were when you met them.
Yeah. You're holding on to the feeling you had.
And that is the person that in your head exists. Why aren't they doing this? Well, that's because they're not that person. But that's very difficult to grasp, because you thought that who you first met was that person, but that was just them trying their hardest to impress you.
For sure. And I think there's a combination of that person being different with the initial excitation and feeling of something new and shiny. Yeah. You know? People, it's almost like people create an expectation of wanting to get back to that first feeling, because people think about relationships statically. They think they're fixed instead of like growth based. You know, it's dynamic. Your feelings are going to change, and not change in a negative way, but your things are going to change. You guys are going to grow as a couple, as individuals. And if you can't grow to accept change, you're constantly trying to chase something that you'll never get back to. Or then you become one of those people that loves falling in love initially. I was one of those people in like between my relationships where I was like, I love the excitation and it's gone. Excitation and then it's gone. what are you chasing? You know, you're chasing that you're not, it's not real. That's not the person. That's the person's resume. And the resume is designed to look really
Perfect.
good.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, what's helped me is just delivering my true self, and whether you like it or not, it's okay. Like, you don't like me, okay, but this is who I am, and if you do, cool, awesome. I know what I bring to the table. Yes. It's whether you're willing to accept me for who I am, and if you are, great. Let's see if this can work. If you don't, my job is not to force you.
It's not
to think that I am. My job is to just move somewhere else. Like, hey, okay, this isn't going to work. Hey, cool. Nice to meet you. Move on. Yeah. But to now have to feel like I need to force that to work, I think that's the issue. Because instead of you just being, well, this is who I am, yes or no. Okay, now we have a decision. But if I now want to pretend I'm someone in order to try to convince you and force it, I think that's the downfall for a lot of relationships.
Man, some really good pointers that we've discussed. It really comes down to like the personal choice, and you really got to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, is this the direction that I want my life to go with this person? And a lot of times, you know, you have to. It's a hard decision to ask.
You said something. You're like, oh, people, you know, they get in relationships, they spend 6 months, a year, you know, they spend time, you know, invested. But I'm gonna ask this, and this is one of those moments where you just like kind of go in your bathroom and you're like, oh. Is it love or is it momentum?
Momentum. Love or is it a momentum?
You've spent 6 months, a year, 5 years with this person. I have to stay with them because I've been with them for so long. That's not love. That's momentum. You've spent time. You in the beginning was so exciting, and now it's fallen off, and now it's not appealing to you, and now it's breaking your boundaries. But but it's good, you know. But I'm like, you're in momentum. You're not in love. You know, you love where it's going. You just don't love what it is. You love where it could go. You just don't love what it is. And that's the problem. We get addicted to the idea of where it could be, even if the trajectory is completely off.
And I also think, I'm sorry. No. Go on. I also think that people, they go through really, really like bad times, and they take themselves to that one good weekend, that one good positive thing that this person, oh, they're not that bad. They have some good in them. And they cling on to a version of this person that really no longer exists, or certainly hasn't been that way for some time. But it's so hard for them to accept that maybe I made a mistake in choosing this person, because they have to be a good person because they were good 3 weeks ago. That one weekend that was good. It's like a roller coaster. And they're holding on to those highs, even though there's a lot of bad times. And, you know, it's not always going to be perfect. But when you have to think back, when was the last time you were happy? And it takes you, you know, days, weeks, and months for the last time you guys were happy. That's a problem.
It is a huge problem. And highs are relative in a low situation, you know? If you think about it, like, oh, but that high was just so good. I'm like, tell me about it. Well, we were watching a movie and he smiled at me. You've lowered your standards so much that your high is what you would consider bare minimum in any other situation. If you walked in this room and this big wall behind me was a painting that you hated, you know it's bad, you don't like it, but you got so close to it that you just saw a speck of blue and you were like, I like blue. Mm-hmm. You're choosing to hyperfixate on finding the one speck that you can appreciate when in reality, you positioned yourself to not see the bad. Crazy, right? And we do that in relationships. We do that with jobs. We do it in everything. We change our perspective. We magnify things that we want to appreciate because we don't want to acknowledge that we don't like it.
Oh, man, that's a great analogy with the picture.
I just came up with it, so I'm glad it worked.
Did you really?
Yeah, just spot on. I'm like, oh, there's a wall. And a lot of this stuff, like I don't speak on a podium in the sense, a lot of times when I talk, it's like I'm talking to myself. Yeah. I know what I wanted to hear, who I needed to be. I made a lot of mistakes. You know, I let a lot of my issues become other people's issues. I bled on a lot of people that didn't deserve it. And I just refuse to do it anymore. You know, I'm not perfect. I will mess up and I own up to my mistakes now, but communication is everything. And like, I still get my down moments. You know, this was super exciting for me to come on with you guys because for a while I kind of fell off, you know, I was like, I haven't been doing podcasts as much. I haven't been reaching out. I'm like, let me get outside of my comfort zone and reach out, you know? And I love stuff like that. So sometimes, you know, just the littlest things can be so monumental to you, but it starts with you. Don't expect people to fix the problems you're not willing to face.
That's true. That's true. It's not their responsibility anyways.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, other people can't fix your own mistakes, and you know the things that you control your life, man. As simple as it sounds, it's not as always easy, but you know you got to do it.
You said it. It's not easy, but it is simple,
and it's worth it. And it's for the life that you want to live, you know.
sure.
And so, a lot of those steps, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
I
You brought some
appreciate you guys.
great insight. I'm inspired.
Hell yeah.
No, I was thinking to what you were saying. I'm trying to kind of put it together in my head. If not, we'll cut this shit out.
Hey, you're good.
It might not make sense. No, because you were saying when you're in a relationship and it's momentum, you know, because when you're there, it prolongs and it's like, oh, well, I don't want to let this go because we've been doing it for so long already. Like it's going to be a waste.
Yeah.
And I think of it as, there was another analogy where it's like, oh, well, you don't want to do this course or that you don't want to go back to school. It's going to take you 4 years or whatever. And you think it's going to take so long. You don't want to go through that, but 4 years are going to pass. You know what I mean? Whether you do the course or not. And I kind of want to tie it into that relationship because you think, you know what? Oh, but you know, it's momentum. I don't want to lose it, but I don't want to start over. You know, it's going to be difficult. You know, 4 years, a year is going to pass.
Yeah.
It's up to you whether you want to continue that year with that person that you're no longer happy with, or say, well, you know, I need to start over. I need to cut this out. Time is still going to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just not going to be with this person anymore. So much is going to happen. Same analogy they did with the door. You open the door, you won't know until it's over there, but you got to take that step. And until you do that, you won't know what's out there and you won't really be able to take advantage of that freedom that you give to yourself to do whatever it is that you want to do.
I'll ask you this right now. Are you willing to waste 5 years of your life?
Am I willing to waste 5 years of my life?
Probably not.
I don't want to waste 5 years.
Of course, if you had to choose, like, will I waste 5 years of my life? Yes or no? You'd probably say no.
Okay. Yeah, no.
Probably.
Would you waste 10 minutes? Probably. And people waste 10 minutes and then they waste a day and then they waste a year. And that's what happens in relationships. It's because you don't see the bigger picture. You're so small-minded with like what's going on. I just got to get through the day. They weren't that bad. Just go to sleep. We'll try again tomorrow. Yeah. You're trying again tomorrow on something that'll never work.
Yeah, but tomorrow's been happening for the last months.
You are wasting 5 years. You're wasting 5 years actively, you know? And when that 5 years comes, because time passes no matter what, I wish I would have did something different 5 years ago. Instead of, that's still damaging because instead of saying, I wish I would have done something 5 years ago, you can actively say, I'm going to do something different now.
Today.
That's much more powerful than anything else you can do, you know? People are so afraid to make a change. They're so afraid to like do something like that. You're already unhappy. They're like, I'm afraid of being unhappy. You are. What do you mean? You're afraid of what's currently happening. That's like being scared and you're in the middle of a haunted house. Like you're already here, you know, you can stay or you can go. Either way, you're going to be afraid, but one of them has a way out. The other one, you're stuck with feeling what you're feeling.
Man, like, what are you going to do about it? You know,
it's not easy, but it is simple. We talked about that. You know, simple. You have to do something. You have to position yourself. It's crazy that people just accept being in pain. They accept being hurt. They accept being unhappy. And they tell themselves the narrative of, it's okay. I can deal with it. Dealing with it. No one wants to end their life saying, I dealt with it.
Oh, that is so true.
That's so sad.
It's terrible.
It doesn't have to be, though. And that's the good part. Whatever is sad can be good if you change the narrative, you know, self-communication, communicate with yourself, communicate with the people around you, cut people off, you know, what's that phrase? You know, let the bridges that are on fire light the way, you know, cut people off, cut people off. That's not, I don't want to be seen as a bad person. Maybe you should stop trying to manipulate people and seeing you for whatever they see you as, because guess what? Other people's opinion of you is not your business. It's not your business. It's not your responsibility. It has nothing to do with you. And you're controlling and people pleasing in a way to try and control what people think about you.
Yeah, it's like you change who you truly are in order for their narrative to change about you. But now it's not you anymore. Like now it's not you.
It's not.
It's this facade that you put up in order for you to get a reaction or a response from them, but it's not you.
I just want them to like me. How do you know they like you? I don't know you guys like me. I don't know. You could not, or you could, but either way, I don't know. And it's not my responsibility because I know I'm bringing my authentic self and doing what I can. So instead of living externally and trying to see what's in your guys' head, you could tell me, but that doesn't mean it's the truth.
Yeah.
It is a waste of time to try and control what people think about you. it's a waste of time to try and change people's minds. There will always be someone who doesn't like what you guys do. There will always be someone 100%. Who doesn't like what I do. And that sucks. I would love for them to like what I do, but I'm not for everyone and you're not for everyone. No one's for everyone.
And are you going to let that person not liking you stop you from doing everything? Let me stop what I'm doing because I got to make sure this one guy likes me in order for me to move on. Because clearly he doesn't like me. I'm doing something wrong.
That, and it's the narrative. It always, and I love to bring it back to that concept. I say it so much. People are like, it can't be that easy. Or maybe it is. And we just hate knowing that we could have done something a long time ago and we never did.
Could have done more.
It sucks.
And sooner.
It sucks. But now is the soonest time you could do something.
Now is the soonest time.
So the question for everyone is, what are you going to do? If you're not currently happy in your situation, are you going to do something? If not, accept it and deal with it or change your perspective so you can make the most of it. But I invite you to try.
Yeah. And if you're not, you're going to find every excuse in the world to not do it. You know, I can't because I'm too old, or, you know, I have kids, or, you know, like we've been together for too long, or whatever it is. You know, I've been at this job for too long. I can't leave. I have bills. Whatever it is, you'll always find an excuse. But if you're going to make it happen, you're going to find a way.
I applaud people who do that because I'm like, damn, look at the script you made. You made such an impressive script with all the reasons why you can't do anything. From start to finish, you created a masterpiece of a movie. It just sucks that the main character, you, sucks. Yeah. Right. Now imagine if you rewrote that script with the same energy and effort with you winning at the end. You already made a choice to make it once. Let's see what you can do the other way, you know?
You remember that one time that you were so bothered by that one guy who gave you a bad feedback on the book you wrote?
Yeah, I've been there, bro. I've been there.
And then I remember he would he wrote to me. He goes, "Man, it's so frustrating because, you know, like I pour my heart out, you know, in my book and stuff like that, and so many other people love it, but this one guy doesn't like it." And I'm like, say that again, but slower. And that's when he's like, "Oh, that's right." I'm like, "Yeah, bro. Who cares about this one guy? Like, you're not for everybody, and you don't want to be for everybody. Like, there's nothing special about not being for. Like, you want to make sure that you're touching the right people that you know what's going to impact." And for those who don't care, ignore them. That's not your market. That's not the audience you're trying to please. Please yourself. You know, handle what makes you happy. Do that. And the fact that you even put the book together, that you did all the work to publish it, to put it out there, to promote it, and then you felt people so impacted by it, but you're choosing this one little fucker.
Yeah.
And his negative feedback.
It's crazy because you because you put a lot of time, and you've been there. You put a lot of time and energy into creating something, and then we've done it even here. And then for some fucking dipshit, or actually maybe they're not a dipshit, maybe whatever. And for them to say, you know, like this is bullshit or whatever, and it's like it's at the first. Now I'm a little bit better, but yeah, Chris is right. It hurts because you're putting your time and energy into something, but then you have to realize the big picture. Not everybody's gonna love what you do, and that's okay. And they don't have to.
It is. I love to reframe stuff just so everyone gets it. It only hurts if you allow it to.
That's true, yeah.
And the best way I put that is like if I asked you guys, flat tire, what kind of emotions come around with a flat tire?
Oh, I know where this is going.
You know? What kind of emotions?
Frustrated,
yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, anything like that. And I'm just gonna tell you that's a lie. Because when you drive by someone with a flat tire, you don't feel shit. You don't feel shit. If that, you're just like, oh, get out of my way. Like, you know, but it only matters because it happens to you. And it's the narrative you choose to give yourself. Because the event itself doesn't matter. Because how many people have gotten a bad review on their book? You don't care, but it happened to you.
Yeah.
It happened to me. And I hated that because I wanted acceptance. And thousands of people said my book was good, but the one person that said, I'm like, what do you mean,
Yeah, like tell me, like, what was so bad about it?
Everyone's like, you changed my life. This is so good. And I'm like, yeah. But that guy, why didn't you like it?
Yeah.
You know? And we hyperfixate on things that like kind of hurt us. And we just, it's that fear of not being good enough, that fear of like, oh, is this as good as I needed it to be?
Yeah.
And that fear is brought out by that one comment. So we choose to look at it, and what we focus on magnifies, and we focus on that. I get you 100%. And I had that happen where I spoke to thousands of people at an event, one of my biggest events, and the cameraman got some cool video. I was like, oh, thanks so much. I was like, oh, did you like the talk? He's like, I don't like that motivational stuff. And I was just like, what do you mean? People are literally lined up to sign books and like take pictures. And I'm like, why? Was I not good? Yeah. You know, everyone is raving, but I'm so focused on that one. Cause it's like, there's moments of weakness where we don't believe in ourselves, you know, We're quick to doubt ourselves. We want to put out the best product, but there's still that validation we need. No one can hurt you without your permission. And I think that's really important to understand. If someone called you a giraffe, you'd be like, you're fucking on Flocka or something. Crazy,
Okay.
But if someone said you're a bad writer, you're like, ooh, that hurt.
Right.
Why did one hurt and not the other? Because one you didn't care about, and one you chose not to let it affect you at all. The other you chose to let in a little bit. We choose to let things in because we have those internal narratives and dialogues that we set us up. We're predisposed to let certain things hurt us. If someone called me a loser, I wouldn't care. Someone called me a bad speaker, I'm like, oh shit.
That is true.
Yeah, there was an actress that she had it was like a snippet from like an interview that she had, and she had shared like, if I insulted you in a language that you did not understand, would it bother you?
I love that. I've never
You wouldn't
heard that.
know. They're just words, you know, they don't affect you. You don't even know what it means. So who cares? It only matters the meaning that you put on those words, that you receiving it, put the meaning on it. And it's the same thing that you just said. It's you're now allowing permission because you're choosing what's going to hurt you and what doesn't.
I love that. I love that.
The key word is, for both of you guys said it, allow.
Allow.
And
Permission.
The permission. And with the same thing, the opposite, you can just deny them the fact that this is going to affect you. And it's really up to you. It all comes back down to you, full circle. Like that.
Like that one, man.
Love that
yeah.
one.
All right, we are getting toward, so we're at an hour. I do want to put a little bit of a spotlight on you. What you are a keynote speaker. You said, you gave us like a whole resume for yourself, but I do want to give the stage over to you. What is it that you focus on when you speak to people and when you have your actual events? What is it that you focus on?
So as a professional keynote speaker, I get hired by corporations, associations, nonprofits.
Be anybody?
It could be anyone. I speak on 3 main topics: overcoming adversity, diversity and inclusion, and change management. So those are my main topics. I do diabetes talks as well, but that's more for nonprofits. And that's what I do for a living. My goal is to eventually help people become keynote speakers because 1, it's a lucrative career that you can have like crazy impact. And 2, there's communities that I can't penetrate. There's communities I can't speak for women. I can't speak for people of different ethnicities or sexual orientations or different religions. So I want to teach people, leaders in those communities, how to become leaders. So that's my goal over the next year, is to do that. I have another book in the works as well.
Awesome.
I co-own a protein bar company. I consult for large brands. I do a lot of things that all relate to helping a community see their world without limits. And that's what I'll choose to do for the rest of my life. So any form of content, whether it's podcasting, speaking, exposing authenticity is everything to me. So I appreciate you guys even having me.
Of course. No, we're honored to have you. Yeah. We're lucky.
So how do you balance your time? Because it seems like you have I don't know if you have a lot on your plate or you're just involved in so many things, but how does a day in life of Chris?
Like, what's your schedule like?
I have an insane amount of free time right now. So I position my life. I did all of the back end work to get to the point where I'm at now. So before, I was traveling 40 to 60 times a year. I was doing free events to build myself as that D-list celebrity. I became the speaker because I spoke at every event for free. Yeah. I would take everything, because by the time I finished those 30 plus events for free, people were like, oh, who should we get for a speaker? Oh, that guy Chris speaks. So I back ended myself. I got PR and I started doing all these little like news, anything I could. Now I've been on People Magazine, 2-page spread, like Daily Mail, Washington Post. Like my resume is there because I built it to perceive me as that guy. And then I perfected my content. So now I work a few hours a month and it's not too much. And I learned how to pitch bigger deals so that I work with companies over the long run, because hearing me for an hour is great, but regularly helps me create true impact. So I kind of recreated that, working more with my protein bar company. So we're doing a little bit more. I manage all the marketing, but I have the free time to finally have the life that I've wanted. So
you have the flexibility.
I do.
Congratulations.
I do.
That's awesome.
So I allowed myself the freedom as well, because I could fill my time with more abundance. But I was so fortunate to find that moment of like, I'm happy. Something you'll never hear people say in society today. I have enough. And I finally feel that. And it's the best feeling in the world, because I don't feel guilty for sitting on the couch and watching TV for an hour. But you're right. I could, but I don't. And maybe I will, but right now I won't because I really enjoy myself.
That's so awesome.
That is like true happiness.
It's contentment, man. Like I stopped chasing happiness in general because you can't be happy all the time. Western culture is obsessed with chasing happiness. Contentment, being okay, being content with downtime and uptime, being content with freedom and, being alone and being with people. If you always think you need something else, you'll never be happy with what you have. Yeah, and so many people think they need something else. It's because you refuse to accept that where you are right now is good enough because it can be, and it is if you choose it to be.
I always look back and I compare myself always up. Like, man, my life sucks. This
never compare down.
Good.
Yeah.
But I never compare down.
That's a huge point, dude, because we refuse to because that doesn't matter. What matters is there. Like, or am I going to say the word again? Narrative. Like, for real though, imagine being happy enough.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine knowing that everyone listening right now could be happy enough. And you can live concurrently being happy enough and striving for more, not or.
Yeah, I don't think you have to choose between the two.
But we do all the time.
Yeah, lately
I'm guilty of it too. I know. And I'm sure you 100%. As an author and whatever else you're doing, you're like, but I got to get to this point. You can. Yeah. But you can also appreciate too.
Sometimes, man, life goes by quick because you have so much going on and with work and the podcast and writing and this and this. Sometimes you get so lost in the moment and it's like, you got to take a step back and be grateful of the moments that you have, with whatever, with your dog, with Christina. Sometimes you don't think about it, right? And same thing with my girlfriend. And I was talking to my mom on the phone today and I'm like, man, I haven't seen my mom as much as I probably would like. And so sometimes you got to really appreciate it and take things, not take things for granted.
Something that came to me right now, I was thinking about, when I was trying to be successful, I want to be successful so bad. I invested in stock during COVID, and I was up a crazy amount of money and then it came back down and I lost the money that I was up and I learned, I was like, oh, I need an exit strategy. Here's my question. Do you have an exit strategy for happiness? Yeah. When are you good? When are you going to take out? Are you always needing more? I have a friend who I'm not going to name his name, but he's addicted to making more. He's like, I need to make millions, I need to get to that point. I need to own a hospital. I'm just like, cool. How are you and your girlfriend? When's the last time you were happy? He's like, I'll be happy when, conditional philosophy. I'll be happy when, what happens if you're happy now and you're still building?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be or.
It doesn't have to be both. But with that philosophy, I had that for so long. I was hustle. I want to grind, hustle. I want to kill Gary V. Steve Jobs. Curse. I want to curse on stage. I was chasing stuff, man. And you can't be happy if you're chasing. I posted something on TikTok yesterday about relationships, but it was like, if you're chasing the person you're with, you can only chase what you don't have. So you don't have a relationship, you have hope. Same thing with success. If you're chasing success, you're never successful. You're success empty, if anything, because you're not happy. You're chasing happiness. You're chasing success. It's a carrot on the stick you'll never get because you've never allowed yourself to enjoy the damn carrot. Because guess what? The carrot on the stick, you're the one holding the fucking stick.
Yeah. It feels like it's never enough. You always want to chase something else and you're never.
And feelings are not facts,
Feelings are not facts unless you convince yourself to you that they're facts, but they never really are. You got to change the narrative.
That better be the name of my next book. I swear to God.
Change the narrative.
The narrative.
Hey, it might be TM, trademark.
yeah. Barvin's next book. You know what? I'm going to change it to that. Change the narrative. Get you to it.
That's great.
So we're going to start. You want to start wrapping?
Yeah.
So we're going to start closing house. So at the end, time to break up. Yeah, copy break up. Yeah. Nice little pun I came up with. So time to break up. So at the end of the episode, we always like to give our final thoughts. And the final thoughts, it gives a stage to the guests to share anything that they'd like to say to the younger self, maybe something that they believe in, a message that they'd like to give to the world. And then from there, sell yourself. I'll let you take the stage from here on. So go ahead.
So my big message is be aware of the narrative you currently have. You might be telling yourself, this is how it is. Take a step back and say, is this how it is? Or is this the story I'm telling myself about how this is? And if you don't like that narrative, please put in the effort to start changing it. Not change it, start changing it. I don't need you to fix it immediately. I just need you to start. And if you start and put effort every day, 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 6 months from now, you'll live the life you thought you never would. It starts internally and then it comes out, but you got to give yourself a chance. You got to give yourself the effort that you want partners to give to you. You got to give yourself effort. Stop repeating the past. Who you have been is not who you can be. Make the choice, make the change, put the effort. Your future self deserves it.
Reminds me of Dr. Hasty. Remember when he said, Dr. Hasty, he goes, just like you can practice something perfectly good, bad practice makes something perfectly bad.
I love that. And it's true. It's very true.
So when it comes down to effort, every single day, you have to make a change.
You do.
If you really want to. So you can't expect the same actions to yield different results when you're not doing anything different. And I think that's when knowing that you need to make that change, go after it with that mindset, putting the effort in the right place. I think that's where the beauty happens.
For sure.
That's where the real beauty happens.
Man, I love this. Chris, not you.
Hey, what about me?
You come next.
Okay.
It was an honor to have you. What an inspiration! And now I see why why people book you on for these speaking.
I'm about to run through this wall right now.
Yeah, we gotta book you someday. But no, we would love to have you back sometime. Thank you for coming on.
I would love
for
to.
showing your story. And
Can they find you if you were selling anything? I know you also have your those energy bites, energy food. Was that the same thing that?
Similar name, but a little different.
Yeah.
Ours is a healthy, natural protein bar. It's a protein. We're about to launch energy drinks as well. So
Sweet. Awesome.
Coming out in July, August. And we've grown probably like 4,000% since COVID. One diabetic, and we want to get people to pick up that instead of a candy bar. And that's our goal, to kind of change the world one bite.
Link down in the description.
sure.
People can check it out. But the next episode will be really proud of you.
Yeah, we got to speed it up because we got to make sure that it's before July, August when he launches.
Yeah, we'll time it out.
Yeah, Alex, no worries.
Get to work, kid.
We'll make it happen.
Well, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Yeah, sell yourself. Where can they find you? Everything like that, and then we'll.
My name is Chris Ruden. I am the only 7-finger type 1 diabetic world record holding power lifter, motivational speaker, bodybuilder, and donut connoisseur that you know. So I never practiced that speech before ever, clearly. My goal is to help people. I give away free content all the time, on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. It's just at Chris Ruden. You can find me there. Yes, I have a blue check mark, but you can DM me and I will actually talk to you because I'm a human and I'm not a douchebag influencer. Please reach out, man. I love talking, having conversations. If you ever just want to throw an idea around or you want to hear topics, just reach out.
And the upper hand.
The upper hand. I also am an author, clearly, because I forgot. The author of The Upper Hand, and it's concepts on self-communication. So it's available on Amazon, and we regularly run specials going as low as like $9. So feel free to grab a copy. I have another book coming out too soon. So just follow me on social media, and you'll keep up with everything going on.
All right, Chris, it's been an honor.
Chris Ruden,
I appreciate you guys.
man.
Man, thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
So with that being said, if you made it this far, like this video down below, subscribe to our YouTube channel, ring the notification bell so you're up to date with all of our content. We have social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. Also,
got a website at coffeebreakup.com.
And for full videos and other goodies, you can check us out on
Patreon. Oh, if you're watching this, you're already on Patreon because this will be available.
This will be available on Patreon. So thank you for the support.
Thank you for the support. We appreciate you. Oh, shout out to Kimberly, real one.
Oh, Kimberly, well, we got to start with this then.
Yeah.
We got to tell Alex, you start with this part. Kimberly, you're the best. Thank you for signing on Patreon. Thank you for being one of our top tier, man. Shout out to you.
She's a real one. She's awesome.
Yeah. So with that being said,
thank you guys.
Man, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate you. Ciao, guys.